All right, strap yourselves in because today we are going deep into a world of online drama and conspiracy theories and social media politics.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. You sent us this Times of India article about Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and this controversy is causing quite a stir in the MAGA world
Hmm.
and potential ripple effects beyond that. So we're talking about accusations of Psyops and shadow banning,
Oh, wow.
a claimed MAGA civil war, all stemming from the H-1B visa program.
It really is interesting how a very specific policy issue like the H-1B program, it becomes a lightning rod and attracts all these larger anxieties about, the economy, immigration, even free speech.
Yeah, exactly. And like any good drama, there's a colorful cast of characters here, right? We got Elon Musk, of course, never one to shy away from a X battle.
Right.
And then there's Vivek Ramaswamy. You might remember him from his presidential run. And then Shyam Krishnan and Laura Loomer
Right.
adding their strong opinions to the mix as well.
It's like each player brings their own backstory and their own, motivations to this, making this whole thing even more tangled and intriguing to try to sort out.
Yeah, so is this just more online noise or, is there something bigger at play here?
Right.
Let's unpack this, starting with the H-1B visa program itself. So for, anyone who's not familiar, what is it and why is it such a hot button issue?
Yeah. So the H-1B visa program, it's designed to allow U.S. companies to hire foreign workers for jobs that require very specialized knowledge skills.
Right.
Think like high-tech sectors, engineering, medicine, that sort of thing. The idea is to help U.S. companies fill these talent gaps and stay competitive globally.
So it's like a way to bring in highly skilled workers from other countries when there aren't enough qualified people here in the U.S.
Exactly. And that's kind of where the controversy comes in because on the one hand, supporters of the H-1B program say it's crucial for driving innovation and economic growth. They argue that these workers contribute a lot to the economy, they pay taxes, and they help keep, American companies at the forefront of their industries.
Right. But I'm guessing there's another side to this story, right?
Yeah, there is.
Not everyone's on board with the H-1B program.
Yeah. The critics argue that the program can be used to replace American workers with cheaper foreign labor, which they say drives down wages and hurts American job prospects.
Right.
And then there are also concerns about the potential for exploitation of these workers and companies, abusing the system.
So it's this tension between wanting to attract global talent and protecting American jobs that makes the H-1B such a political football, right?
Exactly. And this tension is really at the heart of what the article calls the MAGA implosion. So we're seeing this split within the pro-Trump faction over this very issue.
Right. And one of the triggers for this seems to be the appointment of Shyam Krishnan to the incoming Trump administration as an advisor on AI.
Mm-hmm.
So Krishnan, he's a successful tech entrepreneur.
Right.
And his appointment has really sparked this criticism from some in the MAGA camp who see it as a betrayal of their America First agenda.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it points to the growing influence of the tech industry within the Republican Party, which is, a relatively recent development. And it's creating this friction between, the more traditional populist wing of the party and those who are more aligned with Silicon Valley.
Right. And then, of course, we have Elon Musk jumping into the fray, adding fuel to the fire with his claims of free speech suppression.
Yeah.
He's also very publicly feuding with Laura Loomer.
Yeah.
She's a well-known MAGA figure and critic of the H-1B program.
Right.
So
Musk's involvement is particularly fascinating, I think, because he kind of straddles both worlds. He's a tech giant, benefited from the H-1B program, but he also has this huge following among conservatives.
Right.
And has expressed some sympathy for their concerns.
Okay, so we've got this simmering conflict within the MAGA movement over this H-1B visa program, and then things take a sharp turn into, conspiracy land.
Yeah.
With the emergence of this DOGE Psyop theory that's making the rounds on X.
Right.
So
this is where things get really interesting. So this theory claims that this whole H-1B controversy, it's all a smokescreen, a distraction from the real target, DOGE.
DOGE.
Which stands for the Department of Government Efficiency.
Okay.
And guess who's at the helm of DOGE?
Well,
None other than Elon Musk.
Oh, okay.
And Vivek Ramaswamy.
Hold on. So this theory is saying there's some elaborate conspiracy to sabotage a government department focused on, cutting costs, making things more efficient. That sounds a little out there, even for the internet.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the theory goes like this. There are these powerful forces within the government, people who feel very threatened by DOG's potential to kind of disrupt the status quo, cut into their power, their influence. And they're supposedly orchestrating this controversy to discredit Musk and Ramaswamy and shut DOGE down before it can even get off the ground.
Okay, I'll admit it's a pretty juicy conspiracy theory. Why DOGE, though? What's the motive behind all of this?
Well, the theory points to potential budget cuts, job losses as the main motivator. I mean, DOGE is tasked with finding ways to streamline the government, to cut waste and eliminate redundancy. That could mean, fewer jobs for government employees, less money for government contractors,
Right.
Powerful groups, that stand to lose a lot if DOGE is successful.
So the idea is that those who stand to lose from a leaner, more efficient government, they're trying to take down DOGE before it can take them down.
Exactly. And they're supposedly using the H-1B controversy as a weapon to kind of turn public opinion against Musk and Ramaswamy, portraying them as anti-American worker and ultimately undermining their credibility.
This is getting very cloak and dagger, but if this theory is true, I mean, it would mean there's a lot of behind-the-scenes maneuvering going on, possibly involving some very influential figures.
Yeah, it does raise some intriguing questions, and it brings us to the role of David Sachs,
Dude, Sachs.
the incoming AI and crypto czar for the White House. He kind of unexpectedly waded into this controversy, which is interesting because he's actually been a pretty vocal supporter of increasing H-1B visas.
Wait, so David Sachs is a big name in tech, venture capital, and he's on record supporting more H-1B visas, which seems to put him at odds with the part of the MAGA movement that's against it.
That's right, and yet he's the one who shared this DOGE Psyop conspiracy theory, even though it seems to contradict his own stance on the H-1B program.
That is a head-scratcher. Why would someone who supposedly favors more H-1B visas share a theory that aligns with the very people who oppose them?
It's a good question, and it suggests that his motives might be more complex than they appear. Maybe he's playing some kind of strategic game, trying to appeal to both sides of the MAGA base,
Yeah.
while still kind of pushing for policies that benefit the tech industry. Or perhaps he genuinely believes in this Psyop theory and sees it as this threat, regardless of his own views on the H-1B issue.
So he could be playing both sides, or he might be deeply concerned about this supposed plot against DOGE.
Yeah.
It's getting hard to tell who's on what side.
And then we have Laura Loomer adding another layer to all of this. So she's been a fierce critic of the tech industry's stance on H-1B visas, but she also has her own issues with Elon Musk.
So here's where it gets really interesting. Loomer, a critic of the H-1B program, also at odds with Musk. So why is she dismissing the Psyop theory even though it could support her stance and throw shade at Musk?
Well, I think the key here is Loomer's history with Musk. She's accused him of censorship, of bias against conservative voices on X, even claiming that he shadow banned her account to limit her reach. So this suggests it's very personal. She's so focused on her feud with Musk, she's willing to reject a theory that could actually benefit her cause.
So it's a tangled web of personal grudges, political maneuvering, and a healthy dose of conspiracy theories. Hard to tell what's real animosity and what's just online posturing.
Definitely difficult to decipher. And it brings us back to that central question, is there any weight to this DOGE Psyop theory, or is it just another internet rabbit hole?
All right, let's put on our critical thinking caps here and dissect this theory. What do we need to consider to figure out if there's any truth to it?
Yeah. Well, to assess the validity of this theory, I think, we really need to look at the evidence or lack thereof and consider some alternative explanations for these events, that are outlined in the article. For instance, who stands to gain from derailing DOGE? I mean, as we've been discussing, government contractors, agencies facing potential cuts would certainly have a motive, but is there any concrete evidence that these groups are actively working to undermine DOGE?
Yeah.
And that's where things get a bit murky, right? The theory relies very heavily on connecting, seemingly unrelated events and drawing conclusions based on circumstantial evidence.
So it's a lot of connecting the dots and assuming this grand scheme without necessarily having the concrete proof.
Exactly. And that's why critical thinking is so important in these situations. We need to be aware of confirmation bias, that tendency to seek out information that confirms what we already believe, even if that evidence is weak or unreliable.
It's like that saying, if you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
if you're convinced of a conspiracy, you're going to see evidence of it, everywhere, even when it might not actually be there.
Exactly. So while some individuals or groups might be unhappy with DOG's mission, attributing this whole controversy to this coordinated psyop really requires, a pretty substantial leap of faith.
It feels like a classic case of Occam's razor, where the simplest explanation is usually the best, right?
Right.
Maybe this is just a complex policy issue that's generating genuine disagreements and heated debates, especially in the echo chamber of social media.
That's a very valid point. And it's also worth considering that the individuals involved, they might have motivations that are more nuanced and complex than this psyop theory suggests.
Like David Sachs sharing that conspiracy theory could be, a strategic move on his part. Maybe he's trying to appeal to various factions within the Make Gay movement while still pursuing his own agenda.
Right.
Or maybe he genuinely sees this psyop as a legitimate threat, to the incoming administration and feels compelled to expose it, even if it means siding with people who oppose his views on the H-1B program.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that things are rarely black and white, especially when it comes to politics. People's actions can seem contradictory or self-serving, but there might be a deeper logic or strategy at play.
Then there's Laura Loomer, whose personal feud with Musk seems to be clouding her judgment. It's fascinating that she's rejecting a theory that could potentially serve her own interests.
Yeah, it really speaks volumes about the power of personal animosity. It's a reminder that even individuals who are driven by ideology or principle, they can still be swayed by personal grudges and rivalries.
So after examining this DOGE psyop theory, considering the evidence, exploring these alternative explanations and motivations of those involved, where do you think we stand?
Well, there's definitely a lot of smoke here, but it's hard to say if there's a genuine fire.
Right.
The psyop theory it's intriguing, but it really leans heavily on assumptions and speculation.
So we're not ruling it out completely, but we're not just, blindly accepting it either.
Exactly. And it underscores the importance of being critical consumers of information in this age of misinformation and social media. We need to constantly question our assumptions, consider different viewpoints, be wary of narratives that seem, too neat or too convenient.
Trust but verify, as the saying goes.
Right.
Or in this case, be intrigued but investigate.
Precisely. And this whole episode really raises some broader questions about the nature of psyops in general.
Right. So let's talk about that. What are psyops? How do they operate? And why are they such a common explanation for events that seem, complex or suspicious?
Yeah, so PSYOP is short for psychological operation.
Okay.
It's sort of an umbrella term for a variety of activities that are designed to influence the emotions, the motives, and even the rational thinking of individuals or groups.
So it's about using propaganda and various techniques to manipulate people's perceptions and their actions.
Essentially, yes. I mean, PSYOPs can take many forms, from spreading disinformation and propaganda to leveraging social media for manipulating public opinion.
And historically, governments, military, they've used psyops to undermine their enemies, so discord, sway public opinion, especially, during wartime.
Absolutely. But the concept of psyops is also kind of, seeped into the public consciousness, right?
Right.
And it's often used as this catch-all explanation for events that just seem suspicious or difficult to understand.
It's like a default explanation for anything that seems too complicated or too, sinister to just be a coincidence.
Right. And there are a couple of reasons why psyops are so appealing as explanations. For one, they really tap into our inherent desire for straightforward explanations. It's much easier to believe that a complex event is the result of some deliberate plan than to accept that it might just be, a consequence of chaos or coincidence or unforeseen consequences.
Humans are wired to seek patterns and meaning even when they don't exist.
Exactly. Psyops also kind of play into, our distrust of authority and the suspicion that powerful forces are manipulating us behind the scenes.
Right.
In a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, it's easy to feel manipulated, and the idea of psyops really reinforces that feeling.
It's like that line from the X-Files, the truth is out there, but in this case, it's more like The conspiracy is out there.
Right.
And the danger is that this kind of mindset, it erodes trust in institutions, in the media, and even, in each other. When we're always on the lookout for psyops, it becomes really challenging to distinguish between, genuine information and disinformation.
Absolutely. It kind of cultivates this atmosphere of paranoia and suspicion where it's hard to know what or who to believe. So that's why it's crucial to approach claims of psyops with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
We need to ask those critical questions. Who benefits from this theory? What evidence supports it? Are there, other plausible explanations?
We need to be discerning consumers of information, especially online.
Absolutely. And while genuine psyops do exist, they're often far more sophisticated and subtle than those depicted in these sort of conspiracy theories.
Right. Real psyops are designed to be hard to detect, blending seamlessly into the background noise of information. They're not typically accompanied by, flashing signs that scream, "This is a psyop."
Exactly. So, while it's essential to acknowledge the potential for manipulation, we shouldn't let it, paralyze us or prevent us from engaging with these complex issues.
It's all about striking a balance between skepticism and open-mindedness. Be critical, but don't, succumb to cynicism.
Well said. Now, let's bring our deep dive back to the specific case of this DOGE psyop theory and the H-1B controversy. I mean, we've explored this general concept of psyops, but what about this specific situation? What are the chances that this whole H-1B controversy is this meticulously orchestrated psyop aimed at dismantling DOGE?
It feels like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces, filling in the gaps with our own assumption.
Precisely. And that's where things get really tricky. We can't completely dismiss the possibility that there's, some degree of manipulation or coordination happening, but we also need to acknowledge that other more plausible explanations exist for what we're seeing.
Yeah. Like a genuine disagreement about the H-1B visa program and the role of immigration in the U.S. economy.
Exactly. It's a complex issue with valid arguments on both sides. It's not surprising that it would spark these heated debates, especially given, the polarized political climate in the US. And we also can't overlook the role of social media in amplifying these disagreements and creating those echo chambers where individuals are primarily exposed to information that reinforces their existing beliefs.
It's as if social media can take a complex issue and distill it down to these simplified narratives that are easily shareable, spreadable, and creating this breeding ground for misinformation and conspiracy theories and outrage.
You hit the nail on the head. Even if there's, no deliberate psyop at play here, the dynamics of social media can inadvertently create this kind of psyop-like effect.
Right. People become trapped in echo chambers and filter bubbles. Yeah. Their biases get reinforced. Their positions become more entrenched. And it makes it even harder to have those constructive conversations about complex issues like the H-1B program.
It's a perfect storm for conspiracy theories to thrive. Cool. When people lose trust in traditional information sources, they're more likely to embrace, alternative explanations regardless of how outlandish they may seem.
Yeah.
So even if this specific, DOGE psyop theory, lacks foundation, it does point to a broader issue: the erosion of trust in institutions and the media, the spread of misinformation online, and the growing polarization of society.
It's a reminder that we have to be vigilant about the information that we consume, the sources we trust, and the ways that we participate in online discussions. We need to be critical thinkers without succumbing to cynicism, skeptical without being paralyzed by paranoia.
Well put. And with that in mind, let's shift our focus back to the individuals, at the heart of this controversy and examine their potential motivations.
Okay.
I mean, we've already discussed David Sachs and Laura Loomer, but what about the two central figures in this whole DOGE psyop theory, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy? What do they stand to gain or lose in this scenario?
That's a crucial question. And to answer it, I think we need to understand their roles within DOGE and their broader ambitions. So first, just to recap,
right?
What exactly is DOGE and why is it generating so much controversy?
Right. So DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, it's this newly established unit within the incoming Trump administration.
Right.
And its purpose is to advise the president on ways to reduce costs and enhance government efficiency.
And Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are leading this department, which is a pretty high profile position, especially for, someone like Musk, who's already a prominent figure in the tech world.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this situation so compelling. We have this billionaire entrepreneur and a former presidential candidate joining forces to spearhead a government department that's focused on cost cutting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a rather unconventional pairing.
Yeah, it's no surprise that it's attracting, a lot of attention, both positive and negative.
Exactly. I mean, supporters of DOGE view it as this opportunity to challenge the status quo, to inject some much needed efficiency and innovation into the government. Critics, however, they see it as this threat to established interests, a potential attack on government programs and jobs.
So the stakes are high, and that's what makes the Psyop theory so captivating, right? It suggests that there are these powerful forces working, behind the scenes to sabotage DOGE and discredit its leaders.
It's worth exploring the potential motivations of those who are involved. So let's start with Elon Musk. He's a controversial figure known for his, outspokenness, his ambitious ventures, and his willingness to kind of defy conventional wisdom.
He's certainly not one to shy away from the spotlight.
Right. So his involvement in DOGE, it places him even more firmly in the public eye. He's assuming a high-profile government role, something that he, hasn't done before.
Right.
And it's a risky move, especially given his already polarizing personality. It's hard to determine whether he's, underestimated the level of scrutiny and pushback that he'll encounter.
Or maybe he's relishing the challenge.
Yeah.
Seizing the opportunity to disrupt the system and prove his critics wrong. After all, he is known for taking on these seemingly impossible challenges and defying the odds.
It's difficult to say for certain what his motivations are, but it is clear that he has a lot to gain or lose based on DOGE's success or failure. And the same goes for Vivek Ramaswamy.
Right. Ramaswamy, he's a former biotech entrepreneur and presidential candidate, known for his conservative viewpoints and his tendency to challenge conventional thinking. His involvement in DOGE is a significant step for him. It gives him this platform to promote his ideas about government reform and potentially influence policy.
Right.
It could also elevate his profile, position him for a future run for office. He's made no secret of his political aspirations, and his role in DOGE could be a stepping stone.
Absolutely.
So both Musk and Ramaswamy have a lot riding on DOGE, making them potential targets for those who oppose the department's mission.
Precisely. And that's where the Psyop theory comes in. It suggests that powerful forces are actively working to undermine DOGE and discredit its leaders. And the H-1B controversy, it could be a tactic in that strategy, by portraying Musk and Ramaswamy as adversaries of American workers, those behind the Psyop could attempt to sway public opinion against them, eroding DOGE's credibility.
It's a plausible scenario, but I think it's crucial to remember that we're dealing with a lot of conjecture at this point. We don't have concrete evidence to confirm if that's truly what's happening.
That's true, but it's still a possibility worth considering, especially given, the high stakes, the complex web of relationships and motivations and the potential consequences.
I think we've covered a lot of ground so far. We explored the H-1B visa program, the Psyop theory, the concept of Psyops more broadly, and the potential motivations of some of the key players. Where should we go from here?
Well, it seems like we've really, dissected this whole DOGE Psyop theory, explored the motivations of the key players. What really strikes me is how this one Times of India article has kind of opened this Pandora's box of these underlying tensions and distrust, bubbling beneath the surface of all of this. Yeah,
it does feel like this DOGE Psyop theory, whether it holds any water or not, it's almost like it's a symptom of a larger kind of cultural shift that we're seeing. This growing skepticism towards institutions, towards traditional media.
Right.
even towards each other.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're primed to believe in conspiracy, to look for hidden agendas everywhere we look. And that makes it incredibly difficult to have, these nuanced, good faith conversations about complex issues like the H-1B visa program. I mean, this isn't just some abstract, debate. This is a policy with real world consequences for businesses, for workers, for the entire economy.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of having like a thoughtful discussion about the pros and cons, we're getting caught up in these claims of psyops and shadow banning.
It's as if, the conversation itself has been hijacked. We're so fixated on who's manipulating whom that we lose sight of the real issue here, the impact of this policy and its effects on people's lives.
Yeah, I think it's important to bring it back to that human element.
Absolutely.
The H-1B program is not some abstract concept. This affects real people, their jobs, their families.
Absolutely. The supporters of the program argue that it's essential for attracting, the best and brightest minds from around the world, helping American companies stay competitive in these fields like technology and engineering.
Yeah.
They point to the contributions that these highly skilled workers make to the U.S. economy.
Right.
But, the critics worry about the potential for American workers to be displaced and the possibility that, some companies might exploit the program to hire, cheaper foreign labor.
It's a complicated issue with valid points on both sides. And that's exactly why we need to be able to discuss it openly and honestly, without resorting to fear-mongering or conspiracy theories.
I couldn't agree more. It's about approaching this topic with balance, acknowledging both the potential benefits and the drawbacks, and resisting the urge to oversimplify or sensationalize.
It all circles back to that critical thinking that we've been talking about. We're bombarded with information from every direction, and it's our responsibility to filter through it, to evaluate sources, to identify biases, and to question our own assumptions.
And just as crucial as critical thinking, I think, is the ability to engage in respectful dialogue, even, or especially, I should say, when we're faced with viewpoints that challenge our own.
Right.
That's the foundation of civil discourse, which is so vital,
right,
particularly in our increasingly polarized world.
Yeah, it's tempting to get, swept up in all the heated rhetoric online, but we have to remember that real progress, real understanding comes from those challenging conversations, from listening to each other and from trying to find, common ground.
Exactly. And sometimes even the most, outlandish conspiracy theories like this DOGE Psyop idea, they can actually act as this springboard for deeper discussions about these important societal issues. They force us to examine our assumptions and engage with different perspectives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the message is this. Stay informed, stay engaged, but above all, stay critical. Don't let the noise of the internet drown out your own ability to think for yourself.
Well said. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating and at times mind-boggling journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.